All right, welcome back. Taking the Field, episode 13 now. I know I promised you guys in episode 12 I would get into that CBS Sports way too early mock draft for the NFL for 2021, but instead I want to get into something else that has come up a little bit earlier this afternoon, and that is the Premier Lacrosse League announcing their trade window and final rosters for when that will need to happen later on this summer. So the trade window for the teams, for the 7 teams, ends June 12th, and the final rosters need to be trimmed down and submitted by the end of June, going into that championship series in late July, early August. Training camp is in the middle of July, just before things get underway around July 25th. And so the Chaos have actually announced the trade of their 5th overall pick from this 2020 collegiate draft that happened about a week ago. Matt Gaudet, the attackman that they selected in the first round with their first selection, they have traded him to the Chrome in exchange for the number 17 pick, which is going to be in the 3rd round of next year's draft, which the Chrome actually acquired in the trade that sent Romar Dennis to the Atlas. So they swapped 3rd round picks with the Atlas there. Now they send that pick that they got from the Atlas to the Chaos for Gaudet. And really, when you go back and look at the draft that the Chaos had last week, and I talked about this in episode 11 of the podcast in my Premier Lacrosse Collegiate Draft Recap show, is that the Chaos really were my losers from that draft after they drafted Gaudet, and I voiced some concerns about how he would fit into that offense and the way that the spacing in that offense would look for guys like Connor Fields operating from X, and the fact that they had very few outside shooters in this offense now with Gaudet and Miles Thompson, who's already on the Chaos roster, both kind of being those bodies around the crease that like to bang inside and finish on the doorstep. They didn't really have very many outside shooters outside of maybe Jake Fricaro and Josh Burns, but really I wasn't sure how Gaudet would really fit in that attack unit, and now we see the answer being he won't fit, as they've elected to trade him for a future draft pick. And then they come back in the 2nd round with the 12th overall pick, I believe it was, and selected Jeff Teague, who by many people's account won't even elect to play this summer. He'll go back for his final year of collegiate eligibility, as most of some of the top potential names in the draft had done earlier this spring. So really for the Chaos, you didn't really get anything out of this draft other than that future 3rd round pick from the Chrome when you traded Gaudet. So you essentially punted on this draft, looking ahead to the draft in 2021, where they now have 4 picks in the last 2 rounds. They have their original 3rd pick, the 17th pick coming from the from the Chrome and the Atlas before them, and then in the 4th round they have their original pick plus the pick that they acquired from the Redwoods in the Miles Jones trade that sent him to the Redwoods for a 4th round pick and Sergio Salcido. So when you really look at the off seasons for these 7 clubs, in my opinion, the Archers, Atlas, Chrome, and Redwoods all got better this off season with the moves that they made. Archers drafting a guy like Grant Amon to be the quarterback at attack for that team, something that they desperately missed out on last season. The Atlas adding Romar Dennis and Brian Costabile to that already stacked midfield group. The Chrome going defense heavy in the draft and then being able to swing this trade for Gaudet, and the Redwoods addressing their face-off position after Greg Renlian retired. And the Chaos, as I mentioned, basically decided they're going to skip this year's draft. They're going to roll with the team that went 7-3 in the regular season last year, had the best record in the regular season a year ago, and if it wasn't for the Redwoods getting hot at the right time, probably would have gone up against the Whipsnakes in that championship game back in 2019. So they're going to go ahead and roll with the guys that they had last year and that they were able to retain going into this year's championship series. And really the Whipsnakes are what they are, and they are the defending champions from last season. And, you know, they have guys like Dylan Maltz, Matt Rambo, Bernlor, Earhart, just to name a few. Those guys all being back this year with the Whipsnakes club. So you know what you're getting with them, and they will have the target on their backs this summer going into the championship series and beyond. And lastly, we don't really know what we're getting into with the Water Dogs here because we haven't been able to see them get on the field as a unit and play together. We've seen a couple guys all play together on teams that they were on last season, or we've seen them play maybe at the collegiate level together, and we've seen individuals play on their respective clubs, but we haven't seen them all come together as a 22-man unit and play together, and that includes the draft picks that they made last week as well. So that's real quick what I wanted to hit on with this episode of the podcast, breaking down this trade window and the move that has already been made between the Chaos and the Chrome, and kind of just breaking down some of these roster situations as we move through May and into June, where some of these things will start to really take shape ahead of that championship series in July and early August. So that'll do it for this episode of Taking the Field. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this post. Let me know what you think about the trade sending Matt Gaudet to the Chrome for that third round pick. And that'll do it for Taking the Field. Thanks for listening.